Welcome back. You may have heard over the last couple of years of the Vets Roll organization. Really interesting. And Mark Fittigan here is one of the men who started this. Now, you created it with your brother, right?
Right.
Okay, so tell us about Vets Roll for people who aren't familiar.
Well, I tell you, Vets Roll is somewhat patterned after the honor flights, which is really a nationwide effort where they raise funds and they fly World War II era veterans out to D.C. at no charge. Kind of a big thank you for their service to the country. And what's unique about Vets Roll is that we are, to our knowledge, the one and only in the country that does a program like this. We do it by ground, and ours is over 4 days, and we take a caravan of 10 56-passenger charter buses, and we raise funds. Really nowadays it's all year long, and we take the World War II era veterans, we take the Rosita Riveters, which is kind of the catchphrase for the ladies that went to work in the factories in World War II. And then we also take Korean era veterans through the end of 1958. And this year's trip will be leaving on May 20th. It's on a Sunday morning from the Eclipse Center in Beloit. This will be our third trip. And this whole program has just caught fire, and it's been incredibly successful and popular. This year will mark the 525th veteran and Rosie that we've taken out to DC now in just 3 trips. And it's quite a sight to see the 10 charter buses going down the road together, and all the things that go along with it.
Yeah, I think we've actually got the video here. This is from last year when the entire caravan of buses came back, and so many people from the community came out just to cheer for all these service members who have done so much for our country and probably often don't get the recognition they deserve.
That's right. Now, for me personally, it's my father's generation. For you, it's probably your grandparents' generation.
My grandfather was in World War II, yes.
There you go. And now hopefully if they're still alive, you've had time to talk to them and maybe ask questions or thank them. When I was growing up, everyone older than me seemed like they were a World War II era veteran. And you didn't think about it at the time because there was millions of them. And now suddenly the World War II era veterans are in their, the youngest ones are in their mid-80s. We've got one signed up for this year's trip that's 96 years old.
Wow.
And a lot of them have moved into their 90s now. And unfortunately, time is not on their side. And it's the greatest generation that ever lived. And that's why it's just such a neat thing to get involved. And like I say, we include the Rosita Riveters, our own mother, Barb. She's a Rosita Riveter. She worked in the factory, a factory in Beloit during the war years, and that's actually how she ended up meeting our father. And then we also honor the Korean era veterans because they're such a forgotten group of veterans too, and most of them are now in their mid-70s to even early 80s for a lot of the Korean era veterans.
Do you find that a lot of these veterans have never had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. before?
We find that a lot. With the older group, the World War II group, a lot of them, they're not into the electronic age, and so they don't keep up with things on the internet, and some of them are hard to reach. We're still getting ones, even in Beloit where we're located. We get new signups for the World War II generation that want to go on the trip. They've just heard about it. And a lot of them just don't travel well, or possibly they didn't have an interest in it before because, there could be some tough memories for a lot of them. But they hear from their friends. They hear at church and VFWs and Legions what a just incredible closure this is to their lives. And so now it's an easier sell. I hate to use the word sell, but it's an easier sell on our part now because we have a proven track record of just bringing these beautiful memories to these people. And the downside of it, unfortunately, is the number of funerals that we get notified about. But but it's a sweet feeling. I shouldn't say sweet, but
bittersweet.
It's a bittersweet feeling knowing that you fulfilled somebody's life like that. The impact that we had in 4 days of a 90-year-old's life, and to listen to their report back to us, the families, the way it impacted them, and the community in general, it's just a great feeling.
It's huge. Now, you mentioned that some don't travel well. Is that why you decided to do this by bus rather than by plane?
Right. We got the idea, like I say, from the honor flights, and we are not in competition with the honor flights. We actually kind of reciprocate. There are many veterans that have never flown. They went by troop transports to go overseas. And because of that, they either can't fly or they won't fly,
or maybe health reasons.
Yeah, it can be health reasons, right? And some of the honor flights have contacted us. We have one gentleman going with this year that was shot down over Europe in an air fight, and he's never flown since then.
Well, and, yeah, that's
and so, you know, they're sending him to us. And we reciprocate back because we'll have veterans that may have spouses that they don't want to be gone from for 4 days. You know, they're so closely, you know, they've been together 60, 65 years. And we'll get them hooked up with an honor flight to go, you know, on the 1-day flight that way too.
Because we should mention your trip, it's just for the veterans, so this is not something where you bring your spouse or your kids with you. You're going with other veterans only.
That's correct, unless the spouse is also a veteran or Rosie the Riveter.
Which is the case of your parents.
Yeah, in our case it was. Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the things that people can look forward to? I know you have some surprises on the trip, so you can't tell us everything, but what are some of the stops? What are some of the things that people will experience?
Well, Jeannie, the first day on the road, we leave from Beloit at the Eclipse Center. They're real bright and early in the morning. We'll have a motorcycle escort that'll lead our caravan out onto the interstate. And it's just a neat experience. They're so quiet when they first get out. You know, they're in trepidation about the trip and the anxiety that goes along with it. By the time we get to the first stop in Indiana, because we stop every 2.5 to 3 hours. By the time we get to the first stop in Indiana, they're already best buds. It's like they've known each other forever. And from that point on, for the next 4 days, we're kind of like a fly on the wall. You know, we just, we're there, but we listen. They kind of let us into their lives. They have this fraternal thread between all of them that they share these stories with. And some of them are so funny. It's just incredible. And other ones are just heart-wrenching too, you know, when they start to really get into the emotion of the trip. And the first night we stay at the Radisson Convention Center in Pittsburgh, the Green Tree Radisson, and then of course we have group meals and everything. And then the second morning we go to the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where the civilian heroes of the terrorist attacks in 2001, they put the flight down there in the rural hills. And that's an incredibly emotional thing for the veterans. They really connect with that. And then from there we go down to Hagerstown, Maryland. That's where we stay the second and third nights. And we have a lot of surprises lined up at the hotel there, and just can't say what they are yet. But and then the third day we spend the entire day in Washington, D.C. We go to Arlington, the Tomb of the Unknown, the Changing of the Guard. We go to the Iwo Jima Memorial, the Korean Memorial, the Vietnam Wall, Lincoln Memorial, and then we really highlight the day with a rendezvous at the World War II Memorial. That's kind of the keynote stop of the trip. And then again, we eat as groups 3 times a day and whatnot, go back to the hotel that night, and then the fourth morning, which this year would be on a Wednesday morning, we get up bright and early, and we get on the road, and we actually come all the way from Hagerstown, Maryland back to Beloit in 1 day.
In 1 day, okay.
And it's a long trip, but the adrenaline starts pumping because we have a state police escort all the way from Pennsylvania back to Beloit. And they put the 10 buses out in the left-hand lane, and away we go. And the veterans just think it's too cool. And when we stop at the rest areas, you know, 3 hours apart, the state troopers will stop with us, and some of the veterans will even get into the squad cars and hit the sirens and the lights. They're like little kids. They just love it. And another thing that's really neat about the trip is people follow this through Facebook and then also with Skype, and they can follow it live time. And so they know where we're at most any time.
Wow.
And we could be going through the middle of Ohio, and there'll be a family or a firefighter or a policeman or a soldier that'll be up on a bridge on the interstate, and they'll be waving the American flags. They'll be up there saluting and things like that. That's emotional. You can't describe what it means to us, but also to the veterans themselves. And then, of course, when we get back to Beloit on Wednesday night, we have the escort into town with the fire departments, just like what we had last year, and the fireworks display. And we've got some other surprises lined up to even enhance that experience a little bit more.
Sure. What I like too is that this is a chance for other people to say thank you to them, because I think I speak for a lot of people my age and maybe a lot of people your age. We're so grateful for that service, but you don't always know how to say thank you or have the right chance to say thank you.
That is a great point.
You know,
we have, I think the last time I counted, we've got about 7 or 8 people of 18 and 19 years old that are signed up to go with on the trip for assistance, including my own daughter is going with for the third time. And to see that connection with the younger people, and what we really drive home, I go to like some high schools and we talk to assemblies and whatnot, is, you know, in school, you see a black and white textbook and you read somebody's interpretation of what happened, and yet you still, if you're in school today, you still have the ability to have that connection with living history, and it's really what they are. You skip a generation and you can see the color of the veteran's face, you can hear the voice, you can see the emotion when they talk about it, and they do want to talk. I mean, for years they kept it close to the vest, but now they're willing to talk. And you know, you go to a restaurant, you'll see somebody wearing their veteran hat. You know, you don't look at them like an old person anymore. You know, you start to respect. There's a story that's unique under every one of those hats that you see out there, and you got to just ask them, and they'll be glad to talk to you.
That's a really good point. There's so much to cover, and I feel like we have to take a break. So before we take a break, before they start rolling the music here, if veterans are interested in getting involved, how do they do that?
As it says on the screen here, vetsroll.org. You go to vetsroll.org. That's our website. Or my email is mark, M-A-R-K, @vetsroll.org. Or even my cell phone. I work 24 hours a day. Okay. 608-207-8319. Okay,
and there's Facebook too if you... I don't know how many veterans are on Facebook, though. I think my grandpa's kind of anti-Facebook. But if they are, you can also go to facebook.com/vetsroll.org. We got to take a quick break. So much more to talk about, including how you can help out with a fundraiser, maybe donating some funds to help these veterans be able to afford this trip. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.